If you're not familiar with the idea of the collective unconscious, really quickly, it is the idea that there are unconscious shadows, feelings, traits, behaviors, etc., that are present within so much of humanity that it creates a collective unconscious shadow. And I think of it often as like its own spirit, right? So many humans suffer from addiction. The collective unconscious has the spirit of addiction. Many humans suffer from greed. The collective unconscious has the spirit of greed. And for this video in particular, I would like to talk about the spirit of control, which I believe is this collective unconscious shadow that especially in uncertain times like we're in right now, it sticks its little head up and it tries to clamp down, okay? And the problem with the collective unconscious shadow of the spirit of control is that fighting control with control furthers uncertainty, furthers extreme thinking, furthers cults, furthers fighting, furthers everything that you don't want, okay, right? Because when we think about it from like a psychological perspective, it should be pretty easy to understand that the reason for that people feel inspired to have controlling behaviors is fear. People have control based inclinations because they are afraid that if everything does not go this way or everybody does not believe this thing, that things will get worse or something bad will happen. The spirit of control is essentially something that is fed through the spirit of fear. For example, many evangelical Christians think it's the end times. And so they are clamping down their very own spirit of control, trying to force people to see the light of Christianity. And how are not all people, a lot of people responding to that with the spirit of control? They're trying to fight control with control by trying to force the Christians to see the light, trying to force the evangelicals who are worried about the end times to see the light, right? And this is something that I myself have done many times because, like I said, it is a human trait and we are all feeling very uncertain, right? So it is like human nature to try, or something. I don't know why, but it is in the collective unconscious, the spirit of control, to try to fight control with control, fear with fear and control, right? A few years ago, I was on a mission to try to convince people who are pro life why they should be pro choice. Why? Because I was afraid of a world filled with babies who are not wanted. I was afraid of the crime. I was afraid of the poverty. I was afraid of all the different things that I have read and believe will happen in a world full of unwanted babies. Also I was sad for the babies that are unwanted. That's sad to me, but I can't control and I can't force somebody else to see things from my perspective, and they can't control and they can't force me to see things from their perspective, right? And the thing with the spirit of control is that it feels intuitive. It feels like we have to convince them to see things our way. Otherwise, chaos and destruction will ensue. However, as much as our amygdalas want to tell us, the emotion-based, fear-based parts of our brains want to tell us that chaos and destruction will ensue if we don't clamp down the spirit of control, if we don't force everybody to create our very own idea of a perfect utopia and believe things the same way we believe. As much as our amygdalas want to convince us that it's survival and that it's what's best, it's the opposite. The spirit of control does not fix anything. In fact, you can't force people or control people. And when we try to force and control people, what ends up happening and what we are seeing right now as the spirit of control is clamping its ugly head down is that this group tries to control this group, okay, or this type of person or whatever. And this type of person, because they're a human being and it is human nature to want to be accepted and feel validated and feel like you have a place, they are going to find other people who feel slighted, who feel like somebody tried to control them and somebody tried to cast them out and somebody tried to basically force them to be a certain way and tell them that they're wrong and all this other stuff. So now they're seeking out people who are going to accept them and who are also feeling slighted and angry. What does this cause? This causes more extreme thinking. This causes more cult-like thinking. This causes them to then want to assert the spirit of control back onto this group. The spirit of control is now going back and forth and in all these different directions. Everybody's trying to control everybody and nobody can. You can't. All it does is there's no reality in which we try to utilize the spirit of control And that person is then just like, oh, you're right. I've been wrong this whole time. I should live exactly the way you want me to live. Contrary, this person will find people who believe them, create cult like us versus them thinking. This person will find people who believe them, cult like us versus thinking. And the spirit of control will clamp down harder and harder for both sides. So, what is this video about? It is not about calling other people out for the spirit of control because that would be paradoxical, right? It is about assessing the spirit of control within oneself. Because when it comes to a collective shadow, again, you cannot force or control. You can't force people to see something. You can't force people to change. You can't control others. You can only control yourself. But every single person who feels called to deal with the spirit of control, if we start with ourselves and we work with ourselves to deal with the spirit of control, that is lessening the spirit of control within the collective unconscious. So if we first examine the spirit of control in ourselves, this will, we snuff it out in ourselves, we heal it in ourselves. This will, every person who does that lessens it within the collective unconscious. So by doing this work on ourselves, and this is something that is often said in inner work, be the change you wish to see, the change starts from within X, Y, and Z. And this is greatly collective unconscious tied. This idea is tied to the idea of the collective unconscious. If we work on it within ourselves, we lessen it within the entire collective. And every single person who works on it within themselves lessens it for the entire collective. Now, does that mean that we shouldn't put energy into the things we care about? We shouldn't try to create meaningful change. We shouldn't try to do the things we think are the correct things and the moral things to do. No, does that mean we should all be peace and love, kumbaya, never disagree, and X, Y, and Z? No, that's not what that means. That's not, you can't, you also can't force things to just be perfect and kumbaya all the time. To me, what it currently means, what I've been working on, is retracting my energy from the spirit of control, from people who wish to control me, and retracting my energy from trying to control them back, completely retracting my energy in whatever way I can, and putting my energy into the things that I believe, creating spaces where the things that I find to be meaningful can bloom, and people who have the same ideas, allowing people who have the same ideas already and who are in alignment with me, like putting my energy into that versus putting my energy into trying to control others and make others believe the same way I believe. So, just a quick little example. I believe that shadow work is something that most of the collective needs. However, this isn't even necessarily true. There could be a lot of people who aren't ready for shadow work, who don't need to do shadow work, or don't need to do it at this time, who don't believe in shadow work, and that's fine. I'm not here to try to convince them that they should do it or that they need to do it or call them out in any sort of way. I am simply here to talk about it. And the people who resonate with it and also believe that it could be beneficial and helpful to them and in their life can find it and can decide what they want to do with it. And in this sense, I am trying to snuff out the spirit of control within myself that wishes to tell people what they need to do in order to heal, and instead simply talk about my experiences and my perspectives in an open way on an open platform for people to either agree or disagree with. And if people disagree with me, that's fine. It doesn't change my life, but there could be plenty of people who do agree with me and who are feel some sort of resonance with this line of thinking. And that's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to the people who don't agree with me or don't benefit from what I'm saying or don't feel that they need to hear this information or this perspective.